Hello and welcome to Rajawat Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. 4 persons were injured late on Sunday in Barmer city when self-styled Gaurakshaks attacked a group of Tamil Nadu Animal Husbandry Department officials and truck drivers who were transporting cattle from Jaisalmer to Sivaganga in the southern state as part of a breed improvement program. Police rescued the group from a mob of about 200 cow vigilantes who suspected that the cows were being smuggled out for slaughter. The attack is just one of many across the country over the last few months. With the government's ban on cattle trade, we could possibly see more such attacks. But on this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the economic impact of bovine trade in the country. Now, joining me on the program today are N.K. Shukla, Joint Secretary, All India Kisan Sabha, Yatish Rajawat, Senior Journalist, Professor Rajvir Sharma, RSS thinker, and Professor Subrata Mukherjee, political analyst. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Yatish, I'd like to start with you, of course, and ask you, can India afford a stoppage of, bovine trade completely? What kind of an impact is it going to have on the economy?
What do you mean when you say trade?
What kind of an impact is it going to have on the economy when you say that, the markets you cannot sell cattle or you cannot buy cattle in the market?
But I don't think so. That is you can buy cattle, and cattle is a wide variety. Within cattle, you have buffaloes, you have cows, you even have yaks, which is classified as a cattle. I don't think so. There is any reason for us to believe that you can't buy or sell. I mean, every week there is a market in most places in Rajasthan and Haryana where cattle are still being bought and sold. So I don't see that part of the economy being affected. What we are seeing at this moment is a fair bit of bigotry, actually, in some sense, and it is both a religious bigotry and a racial bigotry. Why do I say that? Is that there are attacks which happen on these transportation not trade. These are transportation of cattle, and these are attacked by miscreants who are classified as Gaurakshaks. Now, this is a form of religious bigotry. When you classify a miscreant or a criminal as a part of a religious sect, which is, when you say Gaurakshak, you automatically classify as religion. And then you make that incident kind of snowball itself, because miscreants know that they can attract attention, they can attack another sect or another religious segment of the society by hiding under this umbrella of Gaurakshaks. If you remember, 10, 20 years back or 25 years back, in Punjab, the terrorists used to insist that you can't call us terrorist, you should call us khadkus. Similarly, these miscreants and criminal element of the society is saying that call us Gaurakshaks, and somehow the media kind of plays into this.
Sure.
And this is, I don't think that this has an impact on the economy per se, but yes, it has an impact on a segment of the society, and you must know this background a little bit. See, most of the cow maintenance in Ganganagar area, which has a couple of very popular desi breeds, is done by Muslims. These were old Soda Rajputs who converted into Muslims, and they have maintained this trade of cows for a period of almost 500-600 years. So they are the ones who move, and every Hindu also goes and buys it from them.
Sure, okay.
So now, within this thing, some miscreants are taking advantage of the situation, and they're getting publicity in return. They're getting the, in Hindi they say there's a word called thonda, they become local chieftains because of doing this activism. This is what is happening. I don't think so. This is linked to the. This is really.
So there's no ban on cattle trade, is what you're saying?
There is no.
Fair enough. Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Shukla, there's no ban on cattle trade. This is just being made up, and the cattle are being traded freely across the country. This is just something that is out of the blue. Miscreants are up to mischief at this point in time, and that's why this perception is being created, is what Yatish Rajawat is saying.
I have the Gazette, Government of India, issued on last 23rd May, Unfortunately, I brought it in Hindi edition. But if you read Para 2, Para 8 and Para 12, what is in Para 2? Which are the animals who are included? सार, बैल, गाय, भैंस, बछड़ा, ऊँटनी, cows, buffaloes, camels, all these are included. This is Para 2. Then you come to Para 8, when they are saying where that cattle trade can be organized, they have there mentioned on the border of one state, other states, 50 kilometers within. If Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh border meets, there should not be 50 kilometers from this side, 50 kilometers that side, means within 100 kilometers there should be no cattle fair. And then if there is international border, that should be 100 kilometers. Then you come to Para 22. What is there? If अगर कोई एनिमल बेचा जाता है, if any animal is sold, then you have to give written agreement that this you are taking only for agriculture or milking, not for slaughter. लिख करके देना है, आप सिर्फ खेती के लिए या दूध के लिए ले जा रहे हैं जी, आप वध के लिए नहीं दे रहे हैं. Not only this, you have to give it in 5 copies. In the period of digital economy, 5 copies in on papers, on a stamp paper, 5 copy बनाना है. 1 for the seller, 1 for the purchaser, 1 for the local tahsildar, 1 for the management of that market, and rest with the veterinary doctor.
I think that has been established. My next question
to
you
only
is...
one point only.
Yes, no,
and the last thing.
I'm giving you a chance to speak.
No, last thing.
Okay,
if you purchase, you have not to sell for 6 months. If आज अगर हम कोई भैंस खरीदते हैं 40,000 में और कल हमें 50,000 मिलता है, किसान ने क्या गलती की है? वो 6 महीना तक बेच नहीं सकता है. अगर बेचेगा तो कार्रवाई होगा. कोई कैपिटलिस्ट आज कोई सामान लेता है, कल उसको 1 पैसा का फायदा होगा, वो बेच लेगा. बट किसान, फार्मर कैन नॉट परचेज, cannot sell their cattle for 6 months.
You've established that. Okay, now as per this Gazette notification on May 23rd that you're talking about and that we all know about, what kind of an impact is it going to have? Yes, we know it's going to have an impact on the cattle farmer. What kind of an impact is it going to have on the entire farming society or farming community?
You are asking me?
Yes.
Oh, it means that you are going to restrict this cattle trade. You are going to discourage the farmers for in coming to in this profession.
Not just let's look beyond the cattle farmer. What's going to happen to the farming community if this ban is in place?
Farming community means that the farmers in the rural areas, those who know the rural areas and villages know that small and middle farmers, they keep buffaloes or cows and they supplement their economy, and 25 to 26% of their profit comes from that cattle farming. You are going to discourage that, and this is a simply attack on the agrarian economy.
Okay,
in name of cow, you are going to attack the whole agrarian economy, whole farmers. Be a strongly protest.
Okay, sure. Now let me get in the...
I wanted to correct one fact that mentioned. It is 25 kilometers from the state border, which means, which actually has an impact because the largest cow breeding community is in Ganganagar, which is 25.
Okay, fair enough. Professor Sharma, now let me bring you into the picture. What are the positives of this cattle ban? What kind of an impact is it going to have in the long run?
You see, when we analyze the impact of the cattle trade on farming community or the rural economy or as a whole, I think we should dispassionately analyze the perspective and background.
Surely, yes.
And then should see whether that kind of the impact is going to be generated or not. If we go into the background of the regulations that have been made, because law already existed, there is some kind of a change in the regulation of the cattle trade. Prevention of the Cruelty Against Animals, 2017. Two things I think we should be aware of. One, that there was a judgment given by the Supreme Court in 2015 saying that there should be a positive and concrete step to stop smuggling of cattle from India to other countries like Nepal or like Bangladesh, interstate kind of a smuggling that was taking place. And it was reiterated again by Supreme Court in another case that it should be, the concrete steps should be taken, regulations should be framed. And secondly, there was a report of the parliamentary committee also saying that the cattle trade must be regulated. It was in this is the perspective in which the regulations came in 2017. The kind of the clauses that are being talked about, I think cattle trade, so far as the economic purpose of the cattle trade is concerned, the income is not earned merely by the sale and purchase of the cattle. What is the use we put our cattle to? The milk, is one such kind of area, whether it is buffalo or the other cattle that gave us milk. And the Kisan, particularly small farmers and the marginal farmers, they do resort to the cattle farming, particularly to sustain their incomes.
Yes.
So
As a supplement.
As a supplement. And now there is no ban on the sale and purchase of the cattle.
Yeah.
You can have the markets, you can have the fair, you can go and take the cattle, but what is being said is that you should use it for the purposes of farming, including milk or any other domestic kind of a product that you are entitled to.
For argument's sake, just in case a cow stops milking, what happens to that cow then? Is it not a burden on the farmer to take care of that cow for the next few years, next 6 months, or whatever it is?
Well, Mr. Pereira, if I have grown old and I don't move in my house, I'm a very old parent who cannot move. Should I be discarded and thrown out by my children?
That's a very good counter argument that you're posing, and I take that point very validly. You're saying that the farmer has kept the animal for so long, keep it with you till it dies, till it withers away, and take care of it as a person is what you're suggesting and what you're saying.
Yeah.
Professor Mukherjee, what about the exports out of cattle, be it leather, be it meat, or be it any of the? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a $4 billion industry if I'm taken. So what happens to that?
You began with the economic consequences of this, and I think we should concentrate more on that. The first
let's keep it. Let's keep it
important point is, you see, commercialization of agriculture. That's where modern civilization begins, and Britain becomes an ideal type because it introduced it for the first time, and we know the enclosure movement and failure. Now coming to India, India is primarily an agricultural nation, and even an industrialized nation is still far off. Now in this context, the first important point to realize is that the number of people involved in this trade, and as you point out, export. Mind you that buffalo and beef export are primary exporting commodities for us, and if we lose out, we lose valuable foreign exchange, and we are not still a great commodity exporting nation. We are a primary goods exporting nation, and there these exports are very, very important, both for generating jobs and also for creating infrastructure of others. Now, if you really look to the moral argument that Rajvir says, I think there is a certain amount of confusion in that. There is always a question of productivity. We all work, we all retire. Some fortunate Indians get pension, most of them do not. Now, if you really look to the lifespan of a cattle, it has different uses at different time. And in process, a marginal farmer will have to use in a multiplicity of ways. And if you stall that, then I think the economic problems will be insurmountable. And if you really look to the recent activities, now commerce survives on the basis of faith, on the basis of stability, and that I can work out my details peacefully. Now what happened in Rajasthan is checking a lawful activity. You just cannot do it. It's a lawful activity, and I will call it hooliganism. And that some people are stopping some other people who are involved in legal trade, or they are carrying out government orders and moving cattle from one state to another. And that should do, why should it raise any eyebrows? I don't understand. Now, you see, the important point that realizes politics should be limited in the context of a democratic polity. You cannot extend it to the social activity all the time, either in the name of religion or any other.
Which
now,
is what
for
is happening in
instance,
this case.
today, the environmental minister had issued some clarifications, and the clarifications equally point out that there will be enough safeguards, and that what he emphasizes, and I think that is very reassuring, that the modern civilization based on choice, and that choice remains. And the other important point is that the trade and other consumption, that will be determined by the farmers. We are nobody to say it's a big daddy watching. It's not 1984. We have to do the create space to emerge responsible farming, responsible animal husbandry, and provide good market for it. And I think that's where the state should stop.
Yes.
That should be looked after by the farmers themselves.
Sure. Okay. Yes. Yatish first, and then Professor, I'll come to you.
Three points here. One is the import or the export of these primary good, as the professor put it, and how good is export of these primary good, and how big is this trade. I don't think so. Like iron ore, we banned iron ore exports. Why did we ban iron ore exports? Because the economic thinking behind was that if you need to develop steel, and you need to develop long steel products, you need to do flat steel products, and you need to export them. The idea is that when you do value addition on it, you have much more jobs created. When you export primary goods, there are very few jobs generated and very low end jobs generated, which is the case in this particular trade also. So, the economic argument for trade of these products is certainly not there in an evolved economy that we want to build. That is one argument. The second argument which I disagree with is this aspect, and again, why do we need to color everything around religion and saffronize it to pin it down as a political argument? Why can't these be looked as simply law and order issues? Now, it's very fancy, and it gets a great headline in Indian Express to put Gau Rakshak in the headlines. The Hindu puts it as a headline. The Times of India says it's miscreants. Okay, it says this is vigilante. Now, I think that this sensitivity of not identifying criminals by their religion is what is leading to this social unrest. It is not a notification, as been pointed out. The notification puts on a lot of onus of responsibility on buyers and sellers, but it does not say that you can do away with the trade completely. It never says. And the environment minister has come out repeatedly clarifying it. He's put on a YouTube video and all those things. So, if you still want to paint this subject with a religious star, you can still go ahead and do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here, if the term Gau Rakshak was not used in this incident, we wouldn't be discussing even the economics of this. Because the economics of this, if it gets affected, people will stop breeding cows. If you cannot dispose, as you pointed out, and if the farmer cannot take care of it, what do you think will happen in the long run?
Many reports have suggested that that's what's going to eventually happen. There are several pieces in newspapers which talk about that.
So, do you think that if that happens, automatically what the so-called purpose of this government or this party would be self-defeating? You understand?
Yes, fair enough.
So, which is what I don't think is the objective here.
Sure, okay. Mr. Shukla, I'm just coming to you. Before that, let me get Professor Sharma's points as well. Yes, Professor Sharma, you wanted to say something.
In fact, I just agree with what my friend journalist is saying. Firstly, that the things should be taken in a non-partisan manner.
Yes.
Rather than assigning it to one religion or the other religion. If you go through the report,
but unfortunately, Professor Sharma, this whole issue has been politicized for decades together. That it automatically takes that color. You can't help it.
That is what is unfortunate. That is unfortunate.
That is what is unfortunate.
That is unfortunate because clarified this, that the act of vandalism or vigilantism that has been committed in Rajasthan against the officers of Tamil Nadu, that was committed by the drunk antisocial elements, and the group did not belong to any one particular community or caste or anything like this. But we unfortunately are not prepared to accept that kind of argument or the explanation given by the administration. These 7 policemen have been proceeded against for late action, laxity in action, and the miscreants also have been arrested. But what I'm just coming to the other aspect, that is the economic impact of
Yes.
this kind of regulation. And I must say that this kind of import and export, I don't know which kind of category of rich people are we talking about. In the rural areas, how many people really are engaged in the export and import of beef or the meat in the rural areas? And majority of the people of the Kisans live in the rural areas, not in the urban areas. So therefore, are we fighting the cause of the urban kind of people, or are we really talking of the interest of the Kisans? The Kisan's interest is basically lying in the fact that they rear the cattle so that they can generate some kind of a supportive supplementary income. Milk बेचेंगे या उनका कोई और प्रोडक्ट है उसको तैयार करेंगे, that is how dairies पे जाएंगे, that is how they earn their income, not through export or import of the beef. And secondly, sometimes, if you have enacted a law, either you don't enact the law, or if you have enacted the law, then the law is enacted to be observed, to be implemented.
Sure.
If there is a law for prevention of the cruelty against animals, then cruelty has to be defined. What kind of cruelty are we talking about?
But the law should be across the board. Then it should not just be.
Agreed. But it has to be implemented.
What about sheep? What about goat? It should apply to all these animals as well.
That is what I'm saying.
Yes.
That it should be applied. It should be applied, and law has to be observed. Law is made to be observed.
Sure. I'm sorry to cut you short. We've got time constraints, so I'm going to move on to the next speaker as well. Mr. Shukla, would you call it a case of good politics and bad economics is what has happened now?
It is both bad economics and bad politics. Bad politics means divide the society, and bad economics means that crush the farmers. अभी जो हमारे वरिष्ठ आरएसएस चिंतक बोल रहे थे राजस्थान के बारे में, राजस्थान की जो बाड़मेर में आज घटना हुई है कल, वो पहली घटना नहीं है। अभी 2 महीना पहले अलवर में बजाबता बाजार से खरीद करके लाया गया गाय हटवारा मार्केट जयपुर से, जिसके पास रसीद था, और पहलू खान और उसके परिवार पर हमला हुआ, पहलू खान मारा गया। आज तक कोई प्रॉपर गिरफ्तारी नहीं हुई, और राजस्थान और हरियाणा के निवासी थे, दोनों सरकार की ओर से कोई अफसर, कोई एमएलए, कोई मिनिस्टर गया नहीं। हमारे किसान सभा और दूसरे जन संगठनों की ओर से चंदा करके उनके परिवार को और उनके यहाँ जो गिरे हुए हैं, जिनका पैरालाइज्ड है, उसको मदद की गई है। एक बात। दूसरी बात यह है कि जो हमारे वरिष्ठ आरएसएस चिंतक ने कहा कि क्या हम बूढ़े हो जाएंगे तो हमको निकाल दिया जाएगा। इट इज़ ए सेंटिमेंटल थिंग। हम इनको पूरा रेस्पेक्ट करते हैं, लेकिन those who knows the rural areas, they know the cow or a buffalo for maximum 10 years they give the milk, and then they don't give the milk and for 5 and 10 years you have to maintain every day 50 rupees, 50 to 100.
So it will be a strain on the farmer in the long run, is what you're saying.
Please, rupees 50 every day they have to spend for for maintaining.
That point is also taken. That point is also taken. I'm taking your point. I'm going to move ahead, Mr. Shukla. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you short because I'm running out of time. You're saying that the burden on the farmer once the cow or the cattle stops producing milk is going to be immense, and the farmer is going to be affected in the long run, is what you're saying. Yes, who will feed the cattle once they stop giving you something in return, is what you're suggesting. Professor Mukherjee, you wanted to make a point.
Well, the important point to realize is that, to segment rural and urban is grossly misleading. You see, leather industry is entirely dependent on this, and then of course the export and also the internal consumption. You remember what happened in the Kerala house a year ago. So a lot of things are involved in the context of liberal democracy, liberal society, and how do we manage the entire contradictions within it. And there I think the most important point to realize that carrying on legal trade is a fundamental right. And if we accept that, any kind of impediments that come about really leads to a situation when government is accountable, whatever may be the government. I am not bringing the other issues involved. So it is a very important segment that we have to clarify and reinforce all the time, that the people who are involved in this trade, they are as much responsible as we are. And in the context of that, the proper safeguards is to be provided, and as long as this trade is legal, I think we have to respect it.
Okay, fine. On that note, we'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. It's a topic that we have discussed today where we've all failed to come to a consensus, but sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. Thank you to all my guests, NK Shukla, Yatish Rajawat, Rajvir Sharma and Subrata Mukherjee for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next time.